Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. When David called me, what was it, like 5 months ago, said, Pedro, would you come to Penn, to Wharton? I said, I will be delighted. I have been here, I think the last time was 4 years ago, and I'm delighted to be in the most prestigious university and business school of the country. So let me tell you what I was planning to do. We are the neighbors of the South, no, Mexico, and I thought it would be interesting if I would use my personal notes of how I see the U.S. mess. We are always in a mess, no? And now it's the Americans who are in a mess, no? And given the fact that we are always in a mess, we are really good at judging a mess, no? We have been, in the last 25 years of my life, I have had experience on 6 or 7 crises, some of them of my own making, so, I have learned something. And so I said to David, David, do you think it would be useful if I tell this group of the best of and the brightest of the world how a neighbor from the South judges the mess in the US? And these are my personal notes. So let me tell you how we see how this thing came about and why we think things are still horrible, and they are not stable yet. So let me enter into this. So David said, that's fine, whether you talk about this first and then take questions, and then maybe I will tell you a little bit of how do you do it in a small open economy like Mexico, in the developing economy, to raise a fund and to create companies. We have created 9. 6 are okay, 3 are so we're suffering with 3 and counting because the recession is at our doors. Okay, so let me start so that we don't lose time. Everything started with 2 liberalizations: the liberalization of the mortgage market and the liberalization of the investment bank. One has to do 2002, one has to do with 2004. So I'm not going to talk a lot about that. If you want to read something about that, I will tell you, but the important thing, ¿Estás rojo aquí? Okay, good. If you follow the house prices in the US, they were growing since 2000, 10%, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so everybody was saying, oh my God, they have a boom in real estate, but a boom, not a permanent boom, no? Really off the cliff, and they're going to go down the drain eventually. And it happened, exactly it happened. So look, the prices were growing at between 10 and 15% for 5 consecutive years. So let me tell you a personal story. 2005, my wife has 3 friends of her high school that they meet every year, and this time she told me, we have to go to Miami. I said, what? Said, well, because they want, all my 3 friends are coming with their husbands, and we want to meet, to meet them. Okay, fine. So we went to Miami. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with the other 3 couples. And they were nice. And I learned a lot in that week. On a Saturday morning, we have drunk a lot on Friday, so everybody was, and I had a flu, and I couldn't drink that much. So I was the first one to wake up, and one of the ladies said, Mr. Aspe, you know a little bit of finance? I said, well, we're supposed to. And he said, why don't you come with me because I want to buy an apartment? And I said, no, that type of finance I really don't understand. Nothing useful, you know, only theoretical things, you know. I said, no, come on. So I went with the 4 women, my wife and the other 3, to buy the apartment. And there was a Cuban guy, delightful guy. He must be in hell, for sure, or about to go to hell, because he was one of the best sellers I have seen in my life. So here I was with 3 ladies that I've never seen in my life. My wife and the guy was selling an apartment for, I think it was $275,000, beautiful view of the bay, etc., etc. And so the guy said, well, what I want is that I want to sell at least 2 apartments to the 4 of you. So I am ready to tell you that the down payment is not 30%, it's 20%. Do you have 20%? 20% of 275, let's imagine it was 250, so I don't make mistakes. $50,000. Do you have $50,000? And the lady says, of course not, we don't have $50,000. I said, how much you have? One of them said, 5,000. And the guy said, sold. The lady was right. I supposed to know something, and I didn't. I said, what? And she was about to buy the apartment with $5,000. And so she got her credit card. The guy immediately out of the portfolio and said, look here, you gave me the 5,000, the apartment is yours. And the lady said, well, but you know, my husband, no, don't worry. You know. And I said, listen, are you sure? And they bought. And the guy said, okay, I'm renting the apartment. We can rent the apartment in this and this and this, so if you don't want to use it first year, don't worry. Of course, we came out and it was a lot. It was nothing, no? It was, she bought air. Okay. I came back and I said, ay. The Americans are really crazy. They were selling for 2% of down payment, an apartment, and 2%. On the premises that prices are going to increase 15% per annum. So 15%, so the apartment was costing $250,000 first, then 15% will be 290, then 300 and another know what, and then you get the second mortgage, and etc. Okay, I decided to follow that, and of course it was a total disaster. Why? Well, because the first 3 years, it was perfect, 15%, 2004, 2005, 2006. In 2007, look, prices start, still 10, but then prices start coming down. So the boom happened because they lowered standards. So the down payment really diminished. Now, what's the problem in the US when you buy a house with only 2%? That if the prices of the house go down more than 2%, what do? You return your apartment. And that's exactly what is happening. So down payments became from 30%, that was before the liberalization, to, I have heard, of 1% in many places. No wonder on the premises that prices were going up and up and up forever. Okay, so this is the first thing that I want to tell you. And of course, another way to look at it is what happened from the 10, 15%, and now we have minus 20. Okay, first, big problem. So the mortgage market, what were the worst places? The worst places were Miami, San Diego, Michigan, etc. And there were some places that didn't have a boom, and today do not have a bust. Texas, surprise. That's the first one that didn't have a boom, they don't have a bust. I heard that Philadelphia didn't have a boom, do not have a bust. But all the others are in a mess. Okay, first thing. Second, that was the 2002 liberalization. 2004 liberalization. This is the beauty. What I tried to do was to get for you what was the leverage in times just before the bust. Thanks God we're here. No, we have no debt. These are the only boutiques. We used to be called the midgets, not anymore, because there is no one around. But, and everything is relative. But look, 58 times. I mean, 58 times. UBS, 40. Bernstein's, 33. Morgan Stanley, 29. Merrill Lynch, 27. Lehman, 23, etc., etc. When you follow the prudent things, you have to have from Basilea 8% of equity. That means if you have to have 8% of equity, you can leverage 12 to 1. Okay, so 12 is the number, and it should be around here. By the way, AIG in one of the debt equity default swaps, it was 60 to 1. Okay, so here is the model, but the one who got into trouble was really, really large. So if you're a common bank, you will, a Spanish bank will, or any prudent bank will be 12 to 1 and not 24. And this is the 2004 liberalization where you are an investment bank, you are free. And who was the leader in the US who said, and don't worry, people know how to take care of their money and they will refrain themselves from leverage too much. Well, end of the story, and clear stupidity, no? Look at the multiples. Okay, so it's leverage all over again. The usual story, but of course we can say that this time is different. It's leverage. Okay, third point I want to make is that what there is in common between a public servant of a treasury ministry in Kazakhstan, Guatemala, Germany, US, Russia, and Mexico. Well, the only thing we know is that banks can fail, but you never, ever file for bankruptcy. That's the only thing that we know. You can take over 100%, you can take 99, you can take 72, you can take whatever you want. If a failed bank goes under in Guatemala or in Nicaragua or whatever, or in Kazakhstan. But the only thing that all these public servants know is you don't file for bankruptcy. Why? Because there is something called interbank lines. And when you have interbank lines, you want to take the deposits from one bank to the other, and you don't want to start saying, oh my God, is this bank good or bad? You want to take it that they are okay, everything. So here we have a new thing in the US. The Secretary of Treasury of the US decided to innovate. And they decided to file for bankruptcy, Lehman. See, in the 30s, we didn't have the laboratory. Look, the LIBOR. Okay? The interbank lines were, by the way, that was really creative. They globalized the problem from the US to everywhere and across sectors. Okay, so this is really unbelievable. So 3 problems. The liberalization of mortgages with the very low, very low down payments, and then with the subprime, even worse. Second, the debt of the investment banks relative to the commercial banks from 10 to 1 to 30 to 1 or 40 to 1. And third, the bankers of living. Okay? Okay. Now, that point, remember, this is 15th of September. It was a Saturday when they decided to file for bankruptcy. And that thing opened up the whole enchilada. Okay? Okay. Thanks God, this time it was not us. Okay. Now, this is a really interesting thing of the US. Let me be very critical. Since January, since last year, take last year, they were saying, oh, we're going to lower interest rates This is the federal funds rate by the central bank, the Fed. Okay, we're going to lower rates so that the mortgage rate stabilizes. And they have been doing that, and look, the mortgage rate. I hope they don't stabilize it because it's going to go to the roof. Look, up, 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 up. So you have a mortgage problem, and the long-term interest rate of mortgages is going down or up? Up. So I think they have to start thinking different policy. But look at the rates. This clearly is up. This, even in the US, is not down. Okay? So they have managed to increase in the crisis the long-term rate, not to decrease. Okay. I'm glad it's Monday, not Friday. I'm not going to ruin your weekend. These are the highlights. I'm not going to talk about them. You know them better than me. So let me just, these are the guys who, the small ones, who have zero debt. And let me go now to forward thinking, okay? Okay, they decided to do all this trust and to intervene and to do all these things. What was going to happen to the public finances? Well, the conservative estimate is between 4 and 5% of GDP for 2009. But when you have when we have a new president in the US, and we will have to do some programs, maybe he will want to lower taxes for the middle class. Fine, just adopt here. Maybe you want to do, now that the Chinese did this wonderful $600 billion of infrastructure fund, maybe they will want to do another one. Fine. So it will be like here, no? 6, 7, and count. So you are going to have a debt problem and a deficit problem for sure. And I agree that that's what you should do. You cannot stop now and raise taxes in the middle of the recession. I fully agree with that view. But there is a cost. There is a cost, and it's going to be very interesting what the IMF tells the US. I imagine they are not going to say much, but it would be interesting. Once they have been, telling Nicaragua and Kazakhstan, you don't do it. Now with the US in such a mess, it's going to be interesting to listen to them. Okay, this is the GDP, how we see it. We see it, as you know, the third quarter was negative. The fourth quarter, there are two figures, between 2 and 4% negative. That's the fourth quarter of the year. So 2 quarters in a row, or 3 quarters in a row, that means that the National Bureau of Economic Research will say that the US is already in a recession. Okay, so that's okay. Finally, since interest rates are coming up in the US, the dollar is strengthening. It's not depreciated, but it's appreciated. And this is going to make the recovery even more complicated. But that's the way it is. Look, exports are starting to fall. They were coming along well with the depreciation of the dollar. So now with the appreciation, this is changing. And finally, we are really close to a recession, or we're in a recession. That's the 81, that's the 91, and that's the 2008. Look, the retail sales in September. So it looks like a recession. These are the commodity prices. Okay, and finally, consumer spending, that's the 74, that's the 81, that's the 91, and here we are. So it looks like a duck. It has feathers like a duck, and it says quack quack. No, it looks perfectly okay. It's a recession, and here we are here. Okay. China and India decelerated, but they are doing very well, from 12 to 10, and then eventually to 6. But they are doing very well. But so you have Europe in a recession, the US in a recession, Japan in a recession, and then China and India decelerating. That's really what it is. Okay, so we have complicated years 2009 on, because we have credit restrictions, correction of negative savings on households, and the fiscal deficit. So let me finish with this. Look at the US consumer. You are students from all over the world. Now look at the US consumer, but not the rich guys. Look at the average common guy, the common couple in the US. This common couple, they are 55. He's 55, she's 52. They have 2 kids that they are already in college. And their basic net worth is 2 things. The house, which they own, they don't own completely, they own 75% of the house. They took a mortgage, a 30-year mortgage, they have already paid 23 years, they have 7 to go. They own 70% of the house, and the 401k. That's the 2 things that they really own. And you will say, and the car. No, come on, the car is not them, it's plastic. The refrigerator, no, that's not them. The plasma, no, the TV, of course, is not them, no, it's all plastic. So the consumer in the US has only two things which are really, really them. Is the house, 70% of the house, and the 401. So the 401 is invested 50% in equities. So today is January to October minus 30. And the house in the last year minus 20. So there is a negative wealth effect for the average consumer. It's the 2nd year in a row where he has been hit. 2007, the houses went down, 2008, and 2009. So when you have a negative wealth effect in 3 years in a row, do you think that the consumer is going to change cars? The most likely scenario is that they will not. And look at the years, look at the figures of this year. In November, the so-called big 3, which are the small 3, Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors, came out and said, we're going to sell 17 million cars. Fine. In February, they say 15. In August, they say 13. And now we know that they're going to sell 12 million. So from 17 million to 12. That's a big mistake within a year. Okay, but if you take the last quarter annualized, it's 10 million going forward. So can companies survive when you were planning to sell 17 million cars and suddenly you are 12 and the following year 10? And that's the big, big question. And this is the most important thing. The consumer is up to here of that and is not going, this is going to be a very, very different recession from the 81, 91, 2001 recessions. Why? Because the consumer is really being hit by falling 401k and falling prices of housing. Okay? So it's going to be longer and more complicated. So that's how we judge this mess. That's how we see it. So why don't I stop here, take questions, and then move on to some tropical stories of the South. Okay? I stop. ¿Preguntas?